There have been quite a few questions about extrusions in Rhino and how to get them to be solid. So when you first go to extrude a curve in Rhino, by default, typically it will look like this. So it'll be hollow. It'll have a hole at both the top and the bottom. So an easy solution, if you go ahead and do this and you see that it doesn't have a cap on the top and the bottom, would just be to select this and type cap. So if you type cap, that will add a top and a bottom to that surface. So the important things to know about capping is that it can only be done on planar surfaces. So what planar means is that if I look in my front or my right view, they have to be completely flat. They can also be tilted a little bit. So even if you were off on a little bit of an angle, as long as you were a plane surface on an angle, it would still be able to cap that open end. So in order to avoid having to do this every single time you extrude something, if we go ahead and highlight this curve and do an extrude curve here, you can see up here that there's an option for solid equals no. If you click that or you type S and hit enter, it will actually make a solid extrusion from the beginning, so you won't have to worry too much about this. So where this gets a little bit more complicated is if you have a curve like this, and let's say that you have this and it's not actually a planar curve. So if we look in our front or our right view, you see that it's not a planar curve. It's not totally horizontal in this plane. So if we go ahead and extrude this, it will extrude totally fine. But you can see even if I have solid equals yes checked, it's not going to make it solid. And the reason for that is because it can't add just a simple cap onto here. And if we click this and we go ahead and type cap, you're going to see the openings did not have closed planar loops of edges. So that's basically saying it examined this edge and it determined that although it was closed, it was not planar. So it can't do the cap there. So in order to actually cap these types of surfaces, what you would have to do is you would have to actually make this into a surface to begin with. So what we can do here is there's a command called edge surface. So in order to do that, it's going to look for 2, 3, or 4 open curves. So we can go ahead and highlight this. We can do an explode. And then if we do an edge surface, it'll go ahead and make a surface on there. Then what we can do is we can either do an extrude surface here and make that solid. And then that would be one way to make a solid out of a more irregular type of shape. Or we can go ahead and actually just extrude we can go ahead and rejoin these curves back together. Then if we do an extrude, it'll still be hollow, but then we can just copy that surface that's on the bottom from that point to the corner. And then if we join this back together, we'll end up with one solid here. So there's a couple of different ways to do this. Edge surface is not the only way to make this surface. Obviously, that will only work with a 2, 3, or 4 edged surface. So there's a couple of different ways you can look into. Some of the tutorials will show sweeps. Some of them will show curve networks. So those would be also 2 other ways to make this surface.